You are muted. We're good now. Thank you very much. And
Great.
just quick, housekeeping announcement. Any language that Ghanaians understand is welcome on this platform. If I don't understand it, I'll ask you to explain it. But otherwise, you're very free to speak any language that Ghanaians understand, or Africans, I should say, understand for that matter, on this platform, right? Even though basically we, standard go by English. So first of all, welcome, Bafo. Let me start by asking
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much. So tell us a little bit about food sovereignty Ghana. Let's start from there, because to be honest with you, with all the fight that you people have been putting in this whole time, I don't think it's commensurate with how many people really know about the work you're doing and about the fight at stake in general. What is food sovereignty Ghana?
Okay, thank you very much. Food Sovereignty Ghana is a civil society organization that is dedicated to social justice, life, and the environment. So, protecting the integrity of those. And the flagship issue that we've been involved with in Ghana is fighting against the imposition of genetically modified organisms, GMOs, into our food chain. So we were involved in some litigation in the courts, in the High Court and the Supreme Court, to make sure that Ghana doesn't allow genetically modified organisms into our food chain. Unfortunately, last year the government released a genetically modified version of our cowpea, the black-eyed pea, and so now your wache, your kose, your red, your tubani risks being made with genetically modified cowpea. Our concerns with that is the lack of adequate risk assessment. We want to find out what kind of tests were done on this new GM cowpea that the policymakers seem to think is safe and have given it a green light. We're concerned about the kind of research that was done. We're concerned about the endorsement by the Ghanaian people. As you yourself say, most Ghanaians don't know what GMO means. So it means that if you are going to tamper with the staple food of theirs, the cowpea, that's something that requires their consent as a people. And so this has been moves that have been done largely on the blind side of the masses, and it's very unfortunate. But it's a legacy of colonialism that we were seeing in our food system, and the efforts of Food Sovereignty Ghana is to restore the dignity of our African food systems, to restore the nutritional foods that we used to eat. Today we eat, less nutritious foods that are just commercially available. And this is the main work that we do in advocacy, as well as working directly with farmers.
Interesting. So the argument has been advanced. I've heard it being advanced. This is an argument I had with friends back in college, back in Australia, and it was very intense. That food in itself has never stayed the same. Food has gone through processes to get to where we are today. So GMO, genetically modifying it, is only a way of helping sustain our food sources. What's the reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, never before have we actually gone into the genes of an organism and edited them. So essentially changing its being, not through traditional breeding practices where you see the changes occur over a generation, but immediate, very quick, cut and paste, where mistakes can happen, and that's one of the concerns of the whole biotechnology. When the Cartagena Protocol for Biosafety was put in place in the early 90s, it was because of this specific issue that there are unintended risks associated with biotechnology. And because those exist, you have to be very precautious about doing things which will have irreversible impacts on the environment and human health. And so the fact that human beings have bred the preferable traits in vegetables and animals and fruits, it has never happened on this scale where you're doing the genetic modification within the cells itself.
So someone will ask, why not? Like, if they have the knowledge, and we're having a very frank and brutal discussion here, right?
Sure.
So that people understand the issues rather than latch on to,
Yeah.
slogans or anything like that.
Mm.
So one will ask, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with getting into the gene to edit it if that's going to sustain food sources for humanity?
Okay. Well, first of all, the the bulk of this gene editing work happens in very expensive laboratories, very expensive setups that require huge investments and funds and capital, which most African countries don't have. So African countries who are dabbling in this are being supported by external funders. So our local agencies don't have the funds to go into this because at the end of the day, if you look at our problems as African countries, we face four main problems. The issue of the lack of roads, so there's no roads from the farm gate to the markets. The lack of irrigation technology, so people are still relying on rainfall. The lack of warehousing, facilities, so that what you produce on the farm eventually rots. There's such high post-harvest loss, and the fact that banks also don't lend to farmers. Now, those four pillars are what affect agriculture in a serious way. And so we're jumping the gun to try and go and change things without having amended what you should have taken care of, which is if there's a road from the farm gate to the market, what is even grown on the farm will not rot, and we won't have this debate about whether we can feed the growing population of the world. In Ghana, 40% of our produce rots on the farm, doesn't even make it to the main road. So these are the teething problems that we should take care of as African countries, rather than going after genetic modification, which requires laboratories and high intensive, investments in cash that comes with what's it called?
Conditions.
Conditions, yes, conditionalities. So you're given a certain research to research specifically that. Whether the end game of the research endures to your benefit or not, that is the bracket in which you're supposed to perform. And it isn't to the best of the interests of African countries. Also, let me also remind us that African communities have had scientists who've existed here for millennia. So they are the ones who produce these seeds with these traits that we love today. Unfortunately, companies come into African countries and many developing countries and then misappropriate what we call germplasm. Is a form of biopiracy. You come into a country, you take our cowpea, you go tweak it a little bit, then come back and sell it back to us without any benefit sharing scheme for the original people who created that. What happened to that original scientist? Where is the benefit sharing for their ingenuity and their innovation? And this is specifically the issue. So the communities in the northern region who develop this cowpea that make Tubani the way Tubani is supposed to come out, there's no benefit sharing for them. Left to them alone, they're just supposed to buy the new version that has just been tweaked and then has been labeled as something new.
So the question would be then that, but for genetically interfering with the DNA basically of seeds and food sources and all that, will we survive as a human race if people didn't get in there and find ways of making food multiply faster, grow more resistant to pests, etc., as they claim? We survive. Will we survive? Yeah, will we survive on the regular seed sources that we have?
If you go to the Sahel countries like Mali, Niger, Burkina, Senegal, Gambia, if you look at the seeds that the farmers use, the farmers are using seeds that their ancestors used. Why? Because that seed knows the area. That seed knows Hamatan. That seed knows the harsh sun. That seed knows the insects in that area. That seed knows the very little rainfall that they get. So if you bring a seed from outside and try and let it do well in Niger or Mali or Burkina, you are likely going to bet on the 3-month rainfall that you have, and then you can't have a good harvest. So the farmers themselves use what they know is going to work. If it's not broken, don't try to fix it. And like I said, a lot of these seeds come to us through conditionalities and incentives and are tied to things like aid. Otherwise, the seed that is going to do best in Salaga is likely to be a seed that grew up in Salaga, was produced in Salaga, and you can't bring a seed from Nzima land and expect that it will do well in Salaga because they are two different environments. So food sovereignty is about promoting food that comes from as close as possible to the communities where they live. And it's a myth that these insect-resistant varieties enhance, productivity, because at the end of the day, the insects develop resistance. So in India, the pink bollworm is already resistant to the GM cotton. In the US, the bollworm is resistant to Monsanto's maize. So the Maruka cowpea, which they're saying they've released the GM cotton, the GM cowpea for, is eventually going to develop resistance. This happens in nature. So then you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. Meanwhile, at the end of the day, if we start growing GMO in Ghana, even GMO will rot on the farms because GMO won't produce roads. There'll be no irrigation because of GMO. GMO is still going to rely on rain-fed agriculture. And GMO is not going to build its own warehouses. So when you harvest your GM crop, it's going to rot on the farm. So do we go or do we come when we accept these short-term interventions? And the interesting fact is that in most European countries, you're not allowed to grow GMOs on their territorial boundaries. So in Germany, Switzerland, in France, in England, and you should ask yourself, why the double standard? So we should be encouraging the promotion of organic agriculture, the agriculture that has given us the biodiversity of the planet. GMOs provide uniformity. So if you look at maize, the reason why Mexico, who is a neighbor of the US, banned GMO maize recently is because they are the source of maize all over the planet. And if you look at maize from Mexico, it looks like a cartoon. Some of them have yellow, purple, orange, green ears on the corn. You remember when we were growing up, you'd see one may be purple, one may be black, one may be brown. Now today, they're mostly all white or mostly all yellow. Now, that is being the loss of the biodiversity is what you're seeing before your eyes. And you can't tell me that the maize with all the different colors has the same nutritional value as the white or yellow maize. So this is what happens when you let commercialization and profit-seeking override the need for biodiversity, for healthy soils, which require a lack of poisonous chemicals like glyphosate. You need soil fertility. You need the microorganisms in the soil. There is no magical seed that can grow itself on soil which is not fertile. So we need to go back to producing fertile soils like our ancestors did and living in harmony with nature, composting, not putting on hazardous chemicals. And that is what we advocate for.
I see. So let's talk about patents and the whole, somebody will say brouhaha. I don't see it as brouhaha. I see it as a righteous crusade against, to protect, the people, if you ask me, because the small scale farmer is always at the losing end of this whole thing. Some of all these things that we're talking about are going directly over their heads. Some of them do not understand any of this at all. But let's talk about patents for a little bit. And with that, let's go back some years to what they call the Plant Breeders Bill, which I think has metamorphosed to become the Plant Variety Protection Bill, something like that. Take us through that. Why is it important? Why is food sovereignty fighting to protect the patents of our traditional food sources?
Okay, first of all, under international treaties like the WTO and the Nagoya Protocol and the United Nations, it's a protocol that was done for the benefit of peasants and rural workers. Ghana has a right to protect the right of farmers to sell and save and exchange seeds. Now, what is happening is that these international organizations are forcing and encouraging African countries to sign on to these very rigid legal protocols, which they say are to promote plant breeding. And like I told you, the people with the big bucks to do the actual plant breeding in the way that it's done before you get certified by them, there are very few people who pass through that gate. So it's not Kofi and Ama and Adjoa who they always refer to and say, oh, you're not allowing Ghanaian breeders to breed. Kofi and Adjoa and Ama don't have those millions of dollars to do those researches in the labs that are funded, by external interest groups. So these laws eventually go to protect the big boys, the players who come in with their modified seeds, they're hybrid seeds, and then they're basically creating the ecosystem to take over the market. So once you put these laws in your land, the big seed players can now move into the country and control your seeds. Before, back in the day, under Kwame Nkrumah, we used to have a very thriving public sector seed program. So Ghana was heavily involved in producing seeds for its farmers. Today, it's very highly privatized. But back then, the interest was that farmers should have access to seeds, they should have access to good seeds. Now, farmers in Ghana don't have a need to have access to seeds that they need to keep buying every single season. Seeds that if you plant, you can't get a second generation from. Seeds that if you go to the shop and the dollar has changed, then the price of what you're going to buy to take home to feed your family has also changed. We believe that the public sector, that Ghana should be more involved in the production of seeds in the interest of farmers, so that we can produce seeds of the foods that we like. Seeds that would be to produce the tubanis and the beto and the rere and all our local foods. Now we're producing maize, white rice. We have a food policy which allows chicken to come all the way from Brazil and be cheaper than chicken grown in Brong-Ahafo region. And the same for rice coming all the way from Vietnam, more cheaper than what is coming in the Volta region. That cannot be a proper structure. And so it favors interest groups. And this is what we need to realize. And interest groups are promoting these interests.
Speaking of that, many years ago, during President Mahama's first rodeo as president, that's when I started actually following this GM thing very closely. And I did speak with, I should have got that video ready. However, it's on our website and it's also on our YouTube page. You can go and search for it. If you go on our YouTube page and you just put in GMO, I'm sure that video will pop up. But I did have an interview with this gentleman. I forget his name. He was a member of parliament. And I think he was at the time in charge of the agri sector or something to that effect. And to my complete surprise, both parties, both sides of the aisle were in complete harmony with trying to pass the plant breeders bill. The only time I see that is when they are discussing their salaries. That's the only
when
time
there's something in it for all of them.
Basically, that's what I'm saying. That's the only time I see them in harmony. The only other time I saw them in harmony was this time, because I spoke with the minister who was minister under President Mahama at the time, and also member of parliament. And then I spoke with people from the opposition, and they all were in alliance, basically trying to agree that GM is okay, it's welcome, let's have it. Let me give you an example of our past Minister of Agric. Lee said about that man, the moment he became Minister of Agriculture, I put my hands on my head, because he is the one who made a statement like, oh, go to America, all these people eating GMO, have you seen any? He made some dumb statement like that.
We petitioned the vetting committee not to allow him to become minister.
There you go. See, but if you have people like that in charge of agriculture, that's a problem. Now back to my point though. Interest, vested interest. What do you think is going on? Why is it difficult to just understand that the local food sources need to be protected? Why are we going through all these phases? Why has the plant breeders bill metamorphosed to become the plant variety protection, whatever? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, very clearly the heavy interest to have all this promoted comes from outside. In fact, I'll tell you that it's ironic you say both sides are into this, because in 2013, both sides had almost conceded, until food sovereignty and our allies got involved in this stakeholder engagement. The plant variety bill in its form, when we saw it, clause 23 stated that a plant breeder's rights shall be independent of the Constitution of Ghana. Can you imagine? Independent to the Constitution.
How?
Now, because of the engagement and the kind of stakeholder, work that we did, the law now reads that a plant breeder's rights shall be subject to the Constitution of Ghana. So you can see that the parliamentarians were going to concede such a huge right of the people of Ghana. And there's something very sweet about this thing, and that's why all of them are in agreement with it, which is very unfortunate because they're not really thinking far. They're not thinking that the very countries that provide these funds, even in their own countries, in Germany, you can't grow one GM crop on German soil. Neither can you grow one GM crop on Swiss soil. So what is it about Ghana's biodiversity that we don't want to protect for the future? And like I said, the push for GM is coming from outside because 90% of Ghanaians don't know about it. And if you were talking about the political will, when it was COVID, everybody knew that you had to wear a mask. You go to a bank, everybody knew you had to do this and that. The political will to educate Ghanaians about GM, the political will to even ask their consent. Oh, we want to change your wache. We want to bring a genetically modified version of your tubani and your kose. That was absent. Did you ever hear of a stakeholder engagement where people were being called, sensitized on radio, that this may happen to our wache, tubani, kose, eaten every morning? So there's definitely a push from outside, and most of these interest groups, have a reason why they're promoting that side of the business. And unfortunately, the policymakers are not thinking far, and so they concede to all these wants. But very, very, very shortly, then they realize that they've conceded so much. In the 70s, this same kind of pressure came upon African countries, and we were told to stop eating our natural oil. So don't eat shea butter, don't eat coconut oil, don't eat palm oil. Why? Because we were told it was high in cholesterol.
Palm oil gives heart disease.
These are the most healthy oils on the planet, and we started eating hydrogenated fats. So in the same 40 years' time, when we look back at GMO and look at the decision that what made us leave our natural, nutritious foods to genetically modify things that haven't worked in their own countries, that the pests that they seek to control in introducing genetically modified organisms develop resistance to the pest. So have we gone or have we come?
Okay, Edwin. So this is where I hope you understand some tree, small at least.
Yeah.
Good, because we're going to expand the discussion a little bit, right? And we are going to be joined by other stakeholders, because what I've noticed, they say, we are not really discussing this issue properly. The farmers, do they understand this issue? Do they really understand what's going on?
The farmers get so confused because every year, new country comes with a new project, a new vocabulary, new names of projects, and every year it changes. If it's Canada 1 year, the US 1 year, so the farmers themselves are confused. Meanwhile, they have indigenous knowledge which can help them do farming, and they discard that and follow what seems new.
All right, so let's go to and we have a few people who are going to be joining us. The first one to join us is Eko Bako. Eko Bako is a organic farmer. He's a CEO of Roots Organic Farms. I'm sure you'll tell us a bit more about that. And then he, I believe, also has a farmer who grows rice, a local rice farmer with him, who will be speaking with as well. And I think so. We're also going to be joined by Ati Moses Lolo, who's our agriculture correspondent, who also has done some extensive work in the field. Eko, by the way, has also worked in the field as a technical officer. I think that's what they call them in the Ministry of Agric. So yeah, be a very interesting discussion in there. Let's start. Eko, welcome.
Thank you.
So I believe so you've been following the discussion so far. Do you have any question for Mr. Balfour before we go any further?
Yeah, I was following, and I think I'm in total support with everything that he said, because yeah, he was right on point. Yeah. So I think we just continue with the discussion.
Okay. Now, where are you? Are you in the studio, or did you put some type of filter on your camera or something? You look like a silhouette. I'm not sure.
I'm actually in the farm at the moment.
Oh, I see. Okay, it looks like the direction of the sun. Maybe it looks like one of these Instagram thingies.
I'm wearing a riding jacket.
Oh, okay. And I believe so. Oh, yeah, rice farmer with you.
Yes, I mention Waha.
Good. Oh, okay. There you are. Now we can see you. Okay. All right. Mepacho, Ubetimi Dina Baswa, and then we can introduce her and then we can go ahead and have a discussion.
Oba mention Davi Waha.
Yo, Davi, Akwabo.
Yeah, Joda.
Yo,
Kachapo mwe.
Nyamina Dum, Namonso. Yo, the Nyamiase. Yo, Davi, Biatisa Udia Emo. Yo, na yene nipa baako ene ne kasa owo line so bi nyina na ebedi nkomo na bom ye friend Mr. Edwin Bafo ke wo mo no so ebe bisa nsem bi ne ade ni nia ya di nkomo na bom na ye kama na mama bisa wo amo na udua no aya wunya wo seats na wo sunya fin udua fin fa
me akasa na me kope bi na me di ye.
Yo, na ya oto ana obi na de ma ana
me start here no me nipa de fem nti me ye nye na fe no na me de na de me de na de command nti e se je aka o me agasa me nsemu na me de ye me ho de ye
yo na udua ye no afi edi ekire no saa eno abi na nya ya esan di dua ya na se na e wo se okokoto for France na wasan bi dua
me pa to onwa na me ye for me start in 2021 onwa na me de ye adwuma.
Oh, I see. Next is from 2021 udua appear twice no saa dia udua na eno abia na wasan dua saa afi no
Me pa cha
na ye emo type ben na udua
me mo ni mo mu de loka nya grek for the media loka.
Okay, good. Yo, so Mr. Bafo, there you are. Here's your farmer. Obviously, from the cancer saying you so the organic farmer, right? He uses the
Hello.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I might come in a bit. What is happening? She's not a totally organic farmer. Her seeds are organic, but aside that, she uses what I call Dr. Panier, the pesticides.
Okay.
Yeah, but her seeds, like I was saying, she's been planting it for the past 4 years, but she's been using the same seed. Like she explained to you earlier on, she had a friend who was a rice grower. So when she was coming to start, she borrowed some seeds from the friend. And after she planted, after a year, she returned the seeds to the owner, and then now she has her own seeds. That is what she's been planting for the past 4 years.
I see. So material can I see she plants you can say organic seeds, but you see pesticides, like inorganic pesticides. Is that the situation?
Inorganic pesticides and weedicides.
I see. And she grows okay. Anyway, yeah, later. Mami, name se na Mr. Bafoka bi my call Bione Sambra.
No, I was saying that it's interesting. Say Okase, she got the seeds from her friend, and since the friend gave her the seeds, Osawobi, she didn't have to go and buy any.
Exactly.
Because seeds are supposed to be, common goods.
Regenerative, yeah.
Yes. So this is the benefit
of what they call heirloom.
Heirloom. Inti say to own their own seeds. They wouldn't need to go to companies to go and buy them. And the company's seed is tied to the dollar and the CD and all those long things. And he's living somewhere and he's walking to his farm in the morning. Now doing a different. He needs the support, and if he has access to his own seeds, when he has to rely on going to get it from somewhere, even the transportation to that town. So this shows you seeds is good for our communities. Our communities are primarily agrarian. So this Davi lady here, she is an example of what we should be encouraging, to the point where there's so much organic fertilizer and pesticide around that if we encourage them, Ghana will be actually producing those rather than importing inorganic pesticides and fertilizers. We have neem, yewo garlic, yewo muko, yewo tobacco. different things are so use it will make the insects disappear from the plants.
I see. And speaking of that, Echo, yeah, organic farmer on bigger scale than that we believe. Now let's ask you about organic farming, versus GMO, right? So say we are having a discussion about the threat from the GMO. Do you believe that organic farming can sustain the country, by extension the continent, by extension the human race, if we decided to go all organic? Is it sustainable?
It's very, very sustainable. Just like my brother said earlier on, we didn't have this GMO and these pesticides in our system, and we were okay. We didn't have any much problems. We only started getting these problems when these things started coming in. I think I have quite some experience on that. I used to work with the Ministry of Food and Agriculture as initially started as a technical officer and ended up as what they call DDO. I always sit back and say I blame myself to some extent because of certain things I taught farmers earlier on, especially with regard to chemicals and stuff like that. And somehow I thought my fault. It was a policy by the ministry that we had to follow.
There you go.
I heard my colleague earlier on talk about projects from different countries. It is very, very cool. You'll be there. Mofa, every year we get different projects. Improvement of rice, blah blah blah. This new variety of cassava, let's go and test it here. And most of the time, the truth is, it doesn't take as far. I remember a personal experience. I was working in Bremane Skuma district. They brought this new cassava variety that we should introduce to the farmers. With all the sweet talk, well, once it's done, we'll come in to buy blah 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 blah. I went in, preached to the farmers. They did as they were expected to do. They had a bumper harvest, like really bumper harvest. But one, they didn't come in to buy as they promised. And then two, like Mr. Bafo was saying earlier on, it started rotting at the farm because the variety is not used to the weather and pests and everything in the area. I remember it got to a point, this farmer, when I go to his place, he said, when I was in India, into Upompo, would it be Meko? So, by force, I go to Banshi, if I go to Toku, to motorbike. So, meanwhile, no, the road you stop at Omo Junction, and then you walk about 5 miles to their village. You see, what I did is say, at some point, when I stopped going with motorbike, you see, before I see Junction, so I'm 95 miles, just like they do all the time. This farmer, we could do all the miles, so one farm motorbike, yesterday, or the bank never swam back. It may have a roadside. When I see him, that
almost sounds like an insult.
Radio culture.
So, yeah. But once I got like fully into the organics, I think I'm happy. I'm happy because
water first.
For the first time in my life, I can go to the farm, pick any fruit. Probably the only reason I wash it is because of sand or something. Otherwise, I can eat it and know that I'm not consuming any poisons because we do our own fertilizer at the farm using leaves, wood ash, how do you call it? Poultry manure. And it's worked for us beautifully so far. When it comes to pests, we do our own pesticides. I heard my brother talk about a few of them. Yes, we've been using garlic spray, and we have pure garlic spray, and then we have a mixture of garlic and chili spray as well. we got some neem oil, which we use. At the moment, we don't have any. Currently, our main source of pest control is garlic spray, and so far it has worked for us beautifully.
I see.
We don't.
Let's talk to Davy a little more. Davy, whoa. Yo, me pacho na emono se udua ahifa na ya kokoton no. Amafo beto ana se wankasa na wo se wi a wo stand kodwom na wankasa wakoton.
Pacho fije na misi wo so na atofo ba ho beto.
Okay, enti mo baby a ye mo po emo ne ho ho. Enti ho na mo na amafo aba ho na ba beto.
Me pacho.
Oh, I see. Na ne bo
That is Kwesi, let me just come in briefly. That is one of the problems that the farmers face as well, because these middlemen meet them at the machines where they go to mill, at the rice mill, and then they take it from them, not at a good price. Because, so
yeah, I was going to get to that.
You might want to talk about that one as well.
Yes, I was going to get to that. Okay, thanks a lot, police. Davi, no, so mo beto opa on ton mo na and I say by when you call now mo abana there was so ton mo send it here and I say one ton mo he fa na be kwa ton no.
Oh, yes today when you come so say the wusia and the engineer and na omo amat once ni so a ye ja wo na omo abeto na yakwaje esika
na yaska na mo de mamo na eye.
Gawani 30 million sia.
Na emo if you abroche ba ni so so ewo o de toto ho a o hwe emo na mo budua no ene emo na ye di fi abroche ba na ane di fi amanone ba na ne bo no de hina ne bo adin de hina ne bo ewo fom.
Hadi ewo fom skakre. Hadi so mo den. Hadi ewo fom se abroche den.
Damo mudiane bo from. I see. Yo. Na se ufa me fan se eka ba ku bia unya emo no sen na unya wom. A bag sen.
Eka ba ku se unya ho akade nyina dia grawanu. Pampo.
Grawanum. Na ba ku bia 13 million.
Acha say
What's a grawa number could be also 13 million.
Me pachai.
Okay, let's just say one pole be one acre no 13 times 5. 30 million, you say 130 cedis are not saying
1,300 cedis.
Oh, 1,300. Oh, okay, 1,300. And let's just say it's quite profitable. Anna, let's just say Anna.
Boy.
Yo, na mami bisa wo wehu ebi mu a omudua emo a enye local ni bi omudua emo a ye di fi bebi na di seats na brobo oni nipa bisa
ya samu mami bi na afi mi dua na efifi.
Oh, Yanka Wasem. Edwin, I hope you're listening. No, why mona?
That seed that he's talking about, that seed that he's talking about was given to her by the Minister of Food and Agriculture.
There you go.
MFF, yes.
Mama Kaima saying, be a correct documentary be or was it almost say conform about some more alternative livelihood program. And no more bro more you can say someone your friend is saying I can't hear so mon konye omo I can't see the account man 4 years I can't say no sit and say not here. The man is 4 years I can't any dinner dia ni say no kwa send no sit and say not. The dear morning Fifi. Can one sem cheme ndi no. One kasa na kwasa wo kotọ. Ana so mo no wo hwa no mo de bro say J na kodua. Sign esi ba.
Omo batro mi din, omo register me na me koda omo akukọ J.
Okay. Da umako ni ye agree for officer na.
Aha, agree for office. Na me kwaje na medua e. Ni susu mpo enye papa. Abi so di kan jabi. Ebi so medua 2 weeks papa na bi start say so.
Hey. Yes.
What she's trying to say is first year the man on there would dry and then okay maybe 2 weeks ago they started say so it was a funny one. But after that and whatever she was able to get out of I don't know didn't dominate again.
First of all, Udia and
like if I say macra say a few of them a bit by now because I don't know. But what she's talking about the germination percentage, you know, is extremely bad.
Matthias say na me say dey buy no so ka o kesa wo san fa no asan dua bio ma me sure say beba.
I don't know dua ya amba no.
Na na dika amba na dey san kofa say wo ko dua bio. Edwin, what's the reaction? Timing, please.
First one,
and that's the plan. You see, unfortunately, inka by now, no na inka GMO no akosusa by now, no with the president like Trump, no inka obeka say no seeds to Ghana, and inka we would starve here. So this encouragement by our extension officers who work for the Ministry of Agriculture, who in turn work for the funders. Jumama Abrofono, Diomo Peno, and extension officers Becca Chair Epiafono. And they were the ones who would tell the farmers that what you're holding is green. Come and collect proper seed from us. And I say, I'm exchanges banoa. After that, no, I say every single season, Osan Toby. And now Davi Meboa. You see?
Oh, now come with mammy away. Mammy said in Massas but me show me the name one, Miss Uncle Family than I know I'm on the wood. Oh, come.
Wow, what a testimony! Wow. Okay,
you have a look at the farm.
Okay, we'll take a quick look at the farm. Yeah, let's bring on Ati first. He's part of the discussion today. Ati Moses, who's our great correspondent. He also has extensive. I'm sorry, he's still in the car, right? And we're joining with him. Ati, are you able to speak with us?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you've been following the discussion, but so far, I'm sure you know, at least you know what we've been talking about, the GM threat and all of that. No, what's your initial contribution?
Well, fortunately,
let's tell us about. Yeah, go ahead first, and then I have a question for you.
Fortunately, like I read about the GM thing in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and in Kenya, etc. It is not as widespread here in Ghana. It's not as widespread here, but it's gaining food gradually, which is not good. So some of us are trying to organize ourselves so that we become like follow a mouthpiece, find a mouthpiece, and then still fight against it.
Okay, so that's the broken link.
So where I am now, when it comes to vegetables, except for the the vegetables that don't come from this place, like cabbage and all those things. As for that one, we still import. But when it comes to pepper, tomato, and all those things, here where I am, all the farmers use local material, and that is very encouraging.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's very awesome. But you did make a point, sir.
Yes.
There is, we need to have a voice and all that. I think we already do have a voice, and that's where the disconnect is. On the show right now, we have Mr. Edwin Balfour, who's spokesperson for Food Sovereignty Ghana. Right, Food Sovereignty Ghana have been doing a lot of advocacy work, and I believe, sir, it's part of their work, or their work is part of the reason why you have given us a testimony. Sir, GM is not as widespread as it may be in other countries. No, let's bring great. But let me ask you, what's your personal experience? You've had massive experience in the field working with farmers. How much GM do you see out there?
Yeah. As I'm saying, in my work with farmers, what I can say is that GMO. No. Yeah, apart from a maize variety that came along the line, so far I've not witnessed any GMO crop yet.
I see. So,
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So you haven't heard about the cowpea? Because I heard that. Yeah, I think, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good. So you haven't heard about the cowpea?
There's a cowpea variety that the crop itself Hello?
Okay. All right. Let's.
No. I've not heard about. Apart from the crop itself, I've not heard about. This place is not a cowpea growing area.
Okay. So that's how come it's not in that zone. All right. Let's bring on Mr. Balfour for a quick reaction on that. Mr. Balfour.
Yes.
First of all, Ati has told us, fortunately, it's a problem that seems to be kind of held in check. Thanks, I still maintain, to the advocacy work that your organization is doing, among other things. Reacting to this, now let me also ask you, how much communication, or what kind of communication links do you have to the people who really matter, i.e. the farmers who grow the food? Because if somebody says, hey, come for free seeds, like they did with Davi, right? And a different matter altogether. You know what I'm saying? And then they may have infiltrated the food chain with some undesirable whatnot. How much communication are you really enjoying with the chiefs, the farmers, the people who really matter?
Okay. Well, it's not an easy battle, because most of the money and the funding and the opportunity is on the other side, on the GM side. That's where Bill Gates and his people are funding, with billions of dollars, and getting our governments all, appetite wet, that they're, tackling hunger and all that. So even though you educate, there's a constant barrage and effort from the other side. People, companies who are pro-GMO taking media men on retreats, taking editors on retreat, so that the editors think that this is the only way to produce food. Meanwhile, the fact is that most of the food on the planet is still grown by small-scale farmers. Most of the food on the planet is still produced by Ama and Kofi and AC bringing their food together at a farm market and people buying it. The industrial food is what is made by a few companies. But what the man is saying is reflection of the fact that Ghana's food system is still under colonial rule, and often the extension officer is the agent to promote those changes. Now, if Ghana was being smart, we would want to promote organic agriculture, so that after we're able to feed ourselves, we are then producing what is called premium food. You know how much organic food goes for where you stay? Almost 3 to 4 times the price.
Yep.
Why wouldn't we want Ghanaian farmers to get 4 times the price for their output? That would help them buy better shoes for their children. That would help them send their children to better schools, provide health care, and so much more, improving the welfare of farmers. You want to encourage them to grow something where they're going to be heavily dependent, even from the basic thing, the seed itself. The seed that you may have to pay more for the seed next season, or it might not even be available if you have a president like Trump that says that don't send it to Ghana at all. So we need to look at indigenous ways of providing food. And now our brothers in Burkina have opened their eyes. If it wasn't for the intervention of the president, the Burkinabes had stopped sending certain key legumes and grains to Ghana. Beans and cowpeas and rice had been banned, the export, because they're going to add more value over there. They abandoned GMO. They were doing GM cotton back in the day. They realized that they were getting a shorter quality fiber. And when they went back to the conventional cotton, they got a higher yield. So that debunks the myth that GMO will give you more yield. It may give you more yield in your first year. And after that, you start seeing the wahala that Davi has given you firsthand from a farmer's mouth. And so it's time that we start believing in the farmers' indigenous knowledge. The farmers have indigenous knowledge. They know so many things about the land, so many things about the birds that live on the land, about the weather patterns, about something they started seeing, which will tell them that the rain will start soon. We discard all of that if you're not wearing a white lab coat. So we have to encourage people like Davi. What she was taught by her grandmother, they are very useful things, and we must use them so that we produce food that doesn't poison the rivers, that doesn't poison the land. Right now, because of profit, everybody's taking a shortcut. In the end, the land will not be able to produce any food. Then you'll see whether it's expensive to be using condemn, or it's cheaper to get boys to weed and provide them labor. After a few years, when your farm doesn't produce anything.
Interesting. All right. So Eko was going to show us the organic farm, Roots Organic Farm. Eko, take it away. Let's see the farm, and you can tell us.
Yeah, I was primarily showing you Davis rice farm. It's just
okay.
Beside our pond. I'll show you our fish ponds. Yeah, but this is Davis rice farm. Can you see it?
Yes. Interesting. It looks green. It looks lush. It looks healthy.
Yeah.
And it's organic. At least it's organic seed.
Yeah, it's organic seed, yes.
So let me ask Davi. Davi, I didn't know you see chemicals, no edigu way saying so. I didn't say. Oh, okay. And she said, what about
she's basically talking about organic. Said that I know only organic. Organic,
no.
Probably we are going to groom her and change it to 100% organic.
Yeah, but you see the irony of it all, though. Say the indigenous ways of farming, no, it's organic by nature, right? Yeah. And I feel, no, for some reason, no, this was through our government, that's how to speak, through our ministry and so forth, no, Yababed made down the knowledge of the farmers to the point where now their knowledge, no, is applying GlaxoSmithKline to the USA, no, you know, and then claiming said no onim organic. Meanwhile, the organic, no, it's the go-to, it's the original. Whoa, that's the sad story there, isn't it?
Very sad. Very, very sad. Very sad. I mean, like I said, you know, in the 70s, we were all told to stop eating shea butter, coconut oil, palm oil, because it's high in cholesterol. It was a trick. Today, most Africans are eating hydrogenated fats. You can't get oil out of corn unless you pass it through an industrial process. But if you grate coconut, you leave it in the sun, it will trickle with coconut oil.
Basically.
Boil palm, you will see the palm. Shea nut, the oil is there by itself. These are natural oils. When you produce oils that come from an industrial process, that is why the lifestyle-related diseases we are having in this country are all based on the oils that we started eating the last 30, 40 years. And this GMO is the latest, newest thing that they want us to get interested in. But the power in our kontomire, our bambara beans, and unfortunately, we don't realize even the word condemn, the word that we use for all these chemicals, we call it condemn. condemn. The name condemn means something. You are condemning your land.
I don't know
Almost,
what you spray
it
that.
doesn't make
I felt
sense.
condemned. I don't remember the name
Ah,
of
this Davi, she will know condemn.
that.
Anamebo.
The trade name of
Condemn.
the chemical is condemned. So
Uh-huh.
it's already defeated the purpose of everything that you are doing.
You know, the household name, condemn. I'm going to condemn my farm.
You know the funny thing, Edwin, you know one funny thing. Now the condemn has even got into human beings because there's a friend of mine who has a daughter. Like this girl is going wayward. They've talked to her several times. She doesn't listen. One time somebody came to the mom and said, "Oh, I've seen you've got very beautiful daughters here. I wish I could get one of them to marry." And I said, "Oh, right now the two adult ones they are taken already. The one that is left, the character is just like you. Mummy and I condemn for me. You must be worried."
It's a serious thing, though we are laughing. And this is state sponsored. This is sponsored by
Yeah,
our own.
You know, unfortunately, yes. Unfortunately, it's state sponsored.
Yes,
and that's
so the
why
fertilizers
advocacy is important.
The fertilizers that we go to buy and import using dollars, we have so much organic fertilizer around our farms.
As for that one, I'm like a living witness of how fertilizer has destroyed our soils. When I was with the Minister of Food and Agriculture, like it's something that I did a lot of tests on. You use the fertilizer, the first year you get a good harvest. Second year, it's not that bad, but you notice like a sharp decline from the third year.
Mm-hmm.
You will be applying the fertilizer all right, but a sharp decline in your yield because that is when the soil starts to get the effects of the fertilizer, like the negative effects of the fertilizer.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And our forefathers were living in a interrelated system. So his tilapia and the catfish water there, when they release it and put it on the rice, you see how well the vegetables do. You know,
exactly
because this is
I remember when we were kids, like grannies and moms, something simple as wood ash. That was what they were using to sprinkle on the tomatoes, the garden eggs, whenever they notice any insects or something. Just wood ash. Yes, but we've left this and we've gone for this. There's this farmer in, I think, was it Malawi, who did an experiment with tomatoes. You know, with this GM thing that we are saying, you harvest tomato in the morning, by the evening, it's already watery. It's spoiled already. Yeah, he was trying to look at how to prolong the shelf life of the tomato, and then he realized that when he goes to the farm where he sets his fire, it has ash and stuff like that. The tomatoes around that area, they kept like intact. They were not showing any signs of breakage or something. So he said, okay, then probably. So he decided to, and guess what he did? He just took a box, put some ash at the bottom, spread some tomato there, another layer of ash, tomato ash, and the tomato was able to keep for 6 months.
Yes.
Still fresh.
Yes.
But here we are. We just go and buy all kinds of chemical. Like you know the worst part of it. Apparently in the Volta region, now people actually go to China. I have a friend, a classmate from the agri college. They go to China and make custom made chemicals. They request how poisonous it should be, and then they will do it for them to bring them in. Unfortunately, regulatory bodies are not able to do much about it, so they bring it the stuff in anyway. And then apparently the first one that they brought, it really worked for them in the Volta region, and it was in a yellow container with a red cap. So because of that, since that time, the farmers stopped buying all other chemicals and they were going for that particular one. So what other investors or entrepreneurs or whatever they call them also did was, whichever chemical they bring, just package it in the yellow and red container and they will buy for you. Yes, and it's working.
All right. Okay. So, okay. Thank you very much, guys. Let's wrap up the discussion. Let's bring in some last comments. Fred Davi first. Bisa Davi. Last comments and Sanyako. Davi. Yeda sepa se ne obeka ye ho na yedi dwuma. Ye besa ba unchen bio. E wo mu a ye beba behwe we phone me bia edru na ya hwe se akodu sen ne sa akosi se obetwa mo no. Enti yeda wasipie ne. Na ansa ebekọ no wo se ma etwa to ne sen.
Yo, me masa mo etwa to se me ba badwan mu di anje mba ye emu akakra ma me. Me so mitimi di aye madwuma no.
Yo.
We say some ma beka mo ho di mu ababa me nchen kakra me so mitimi di aye adwuma no.
Obeti enka by all means. Obeti enka mo bia kakra bia yeso wo bia yebetimi e di abo ama bibia akoso pepepe. Na emo no so de Sami akasa kra na metimi ato de di kan a meto na medi. Na mehu se you know. Na de ebehia pass all do ho bebo brako. Na pesticide no chemicals out di gugu emo ne so no. Yen hwe no so ho asem for number 100% pa afide. Yetimi se me pache 100. Why?
Me pache you. Masas no so de me mbu wie ntimi hye mo nsa me pepa.
Mate.
Pache me da asiu.
Yes, you da CP. You share with your phone na.
Yeah, mujo so.
Yo, okay. Yo, Echo. Bye. That's it. Echo, last words.
So yeah, just like we have been talking throughout this session, I think we still need to continue the advocacy and probably make it louder, and then we do our own little way, like small things to help with those immediately around us. Just like Davi here, now I'm going to take her on board to guide her to go 100% organic. So wherever we are, whatever little we can do, let's do it, and then continue with the advocacy to ultimately go 100% organic for Ghana.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us on this one today. Edwin, before we go, last words, please.
Yeah, my last words are we should save our local seeds. Our local seeds are the key to our local diet. You can't get tubani, you can't get bitter, the pumpkins, the bambara beans, all the local diet that we have, they come from local seeds. If you lose those local seeds, foreign seeds can't make those foods again. In Ghana, most of Ghana now eats tozafi from corn, maize, but tozafi is originally a millet dish. So it's showing you how we're changing our lifestyle because we're following people. So save your local seeds and keep your farms organic. If you go organic, you're empowering yourself because the neem that's on your field, the garlic on your field, the tobacco leaves on your field, the pepper on your field, you don't have to buy. So you are giving yourself, you're putting money in your pocket. Why would you want to burden yourself to be sitting on a bobo yard to go to town and go and buy dangerous chemicals that are going to kill you in the future? So let's keep Ghana organic and let's stop the hype. Ghana can grow organically. That is what our ancestors have fed us with. In fact, a lot of the farmers, the food that they eat themselves at home, they don't put chemicals on it. They send those ones to the market. So we need to be serious and grow food organically like our ancestors did. And don't believe the hype. We say no to GMO.
Thank you, Edwin. But let me ask you, upe tubani pa
Oh, me petubani pa.
You know how many times you said tubani in this on this show today?
Look, all our local foods are so delicious, and yet they are so simple. They are so highly nutritious. Mm-hmm. Some of them are tasted for the first time just a few months ago, and you wonder why these are not sold on the street. Everywhere you go is fried rice, it's noodles, it's I don't want to mention their names, but we have to go back to those indigenous foods that help people to work all day under the sun and live and walk to their farms at 80, 90. Now people are 30, 40 dying off, and we need to go back.
Interesting. Yo, Edwin, you better sipa. Now, of course, Udin said this is only the beginning of the journey. We want serious advocacy to go down, and this is definitely the home for that. We are hereby officially and unofficially extending a hand of collaboration with your organization, Food Sovereignty Ghana, in the honorable fight to save our food sources from contamination and from commercialization. Edwin Bafo, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you also, Echo. Thank you. We'll be right back. Salute you too. Thank you very much for all the good work you're doing. And our regards to the rest of your team. Thank you very much. We will be right back.